welcome everybody to our March 31st CIBO Power Lunch meeting. And we have a good crowd here today. We appreciate everybody coming. We have our congressman, and I know we all want to hear from him. So thought we'd try to get started a little early since most of y'all got here early. And I think first thing we wanted to do was allow Laura Herndon of UNC Asheville, Vice Chancellor, to come up and say a couple words for UNCA.
Thank you, Buzzy, and welcome everyone. My name is Laura Herndon, and I am the Associate Vice Chancellor, actually, here at...
Wasn't promoted yet.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for the promotion. Did everyone hear that? But I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for External and University Relations here at UNC Asheville, and on behalf of Chancellor Grant and the senior leadership team, we are so delighted to see so many faces here on our beautiful campus today, and I'd like to just welcome you here, and then also extend a very warm welcome to Congressman Meadows and his team. Congressman Meadows, it's so good to have you back on campus. We're delighted that you're here and look forward to hearing what you have to say today. We're also so glad to host CIBO meetings here on our campus. UNC Asheville is North Carolina's designated public liberal arts university, and we find that our strength really lies in our mission of providing the highest quality liberal arts education for the about 3,800 students that call this place, this community, home for at least 4 or so years. We were recently ranked by the Princeton Review as the top university in the nation for making an impact. You might see these around the room. This is our recent Chancellor's report called Making an Impact. Please take this with you. There are extra copies in the back of the room. We also are a top 10 public liberal arts university in the nation, which is something we're very proud of. We're pretty good at sports too. You may have heard that both our men's and women's basketball teams went to postseason play this year for the second year in a row, and so we're very proud of our strong tradition of producing student athletes here. But I just want to say that we are a public university. That means we are your university. We are Asheville's university. So please come back. We'd love to see you at events and concerts and plays and sporting events, etc. There's actually, there are event brochures on your table as well, so take that with you and see if there's something that might interest you. So once again, welcome. Look forward to seeing you again here on our campus, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, we'd like to thank you, Ms. Herndon, and we'll have a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. I think we'll ask Scott Rogers to lead us in prayer and Josh Holmes to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
From this great window we can say with the psalmist, I look into the hills from whence cometh my help cometh from the Lord. Will you stand with me as you're able as we lift up the Lord's name in prayer. Gracious Lord, we thank you again for being with us and already walking with us in this day and throughout this day in ways both seen and unseen. And so in this place we acknowledge your presence and ask your blessing on all these who are your leaders in this community, our legislative leaders, Lord, our business leaders, those who simply lead through the kindness and caring of their heart for their neighbor. Lord, we pray for wisdom, we pray for courage, and Lord, we are reminded that for the joy set before Christ, he endured the cross. And so for all who face challenges, we ask for your spirit of perseverance and endurance. Now fill us and nurture us through that spirit, not only through this good food for which we give thanks, but also through this time of fellowship in which we lock our hearts and minds together in order to build a stronger community. To your glory and honor in your holy name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Rogers. Please turn to the flag. We'll recite our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, next what we'd like to do is recognize, we have some guests here today, and I'm going to go down the list here. We have Jeremy Goldstein, who's a candidate for Asheville City Council. Welcome, Judge Alan Thornburg. Welcome, Mike Fryer, Buncombe County Commissioner. Welcome, Joe Belcher, Buncombe County Commissioner. Welcome, Robert Presley, Buncombe County Commissioner. Welcome, Rich Lee, candidate for Asheville City Council. Welcome, Brian Turner, NC House member. Welcome, Mark Meadows, U.S. Congressman. Now, did I miss anyone? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead. So,
Buzzy?
Yes, sir.
Let me interrupt for one moment here. We got some breaking news that I think is very important. Folks, this is huge. It's really, really huge. I mean, it's big, big stuff. And it has to do with the big event CIBO puts on May the 11th. Very important meeting that we have. It's one of our big two fundraisers. 200 tickets available, and that's all, for an opportunity at a $15,000 grand prize. But the big news we've got is we found out that the Russians have hacked into our computer system. And they're trying to influence the outcome of this meeting. And I can't stress the importance of, if this $15,000 first prize went over to Putin, it would be devastating to our local economy. So we've got to all work together and get these 200 tickets into the hands of good, red-blooded, God-fearing, hard-working CIBO supporters. So seriously, this is one of our two big fundraisers, and it allows us to put on good programs such as today's program. And so we really need everybody's support to take these tickets. So after the meeting, come see me or Patty, or Mike, or Buzzy. We'll be waiting out there for you to buy one of these tickets. We take cash, credit card, checks, food stamps, anything but rubles. So come see us. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil. He does some of these little things around here once in a while. You got to wonder what he was like in high school. Okay, with that, I'll tell you, I'd like to go ahead and invite Congressman Mark Meadows forward to speak to us, and we'll have an opportunity for some questions and so forth at the end of his presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. We'll hopefully keep my remarks brief, because where your questions start to flow is where it gets fun anyways, and I know there may be a few questions. I can tell you, when you said, hold on, we got breaking news, a sweat broke out. It's not normally a good day for me when that happens, I can tell you. So I was real glad to hear that it was what it was. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the chance to be back on your lovely campus and be back really among friends and truly among people who love not only Asheville and the greater Asheville area, but love their country. And as I look around and get to share with many of you, I find that there's such a passion for not only our country, but for students, for really business opportunities. The fact that we can live the American dream. And I look around, and the American dream is still alive and well. And we must not forget that. With all our problems, with all the divisions that are out there, with the fact that we've got partisanship that continues to really be present in the halls of Congress to a point that at times that you wonder if you will ever get anything done. We still live in the greatest nation on the face of this globe, and we must not forget that. And we must not forget that. I'm here to tell you that we've got military men and women who are serving in harm's way that protect those freedoms. The freedom of speech, that whether you agree or disagree with a particular individual, they're out there in harm's way, making sure that that is preserved, not only for our children, but for our grandchildren and generations to come. And so I'm going to talk real briefly about some of the events of the last couple of weeks, since I'm sure there will be a question or two about healthcare and what it is and what it is not. And so I'll prime the pump with that and hopefully get to the point where we can open up for some questions, where then it always gets interesting as you ask the pointed question, well, what about this or what about that? But before I do that, let me start with where I started this morning. I started this morning with two UPS drivers who had gotten awards for driving safely for 25 years. Now, to do anything safely for 25 years is a miracle, but certainly to drive a UPS truck for 25 years without an accident, with the amount of miles that they travel, is phenomenal. And so we were able to give them awards for that safe driving, but it also speaks volumes to what we need to do as a nation. The reason why they have a safe driving award and the reason why they drove safely was because each day they were intentional about the fact that they were going to prioritize safety. They were going to be on guard against those that perhaps would be in harm's way. They would understand that the cost of not being vigilant would not only be detrimental to themselves, but it would be detrimental to others. And so if we look at life in the same way, if we look about being vigilant, intentional, and determined to have those protections around us, not only for ourselves but for others, it normally serves us well. And so I saw that as a real indication of someone who was able to actually do their job and do it extremely well. I don't know how they were registered. It doesn't matter to me. It mattered to me that they were American citizens willing to do all they can do in a particular job and do it with excellence. I went from there to a high school in Henderson County, where we had probably 100 to 150 students there that we were talking to and with, and many of them were in a journalism class. So they had some of the most insightful questions, so now you're going to get to read about it. There were other journalists there that were actually do it for a living that were along with us, but they asked insightful questions. And really, when they were looking at it, it was not necessarily about them. It was about other things and peoples and priorities. And when we start to look, if we're intentional, and when we start to put the focus on other people, then ultimately the result that comes out of that is something that not only we can applaud and celebrate, but it's something that, again, serves us well. So here we are on a college campus where we have all kinds of people that are trying to not only better themselves but learn and get involved in terms of an education that will serve them well, so that when they go to the business community, that they can provide for a family in a way that is not one that struggles, but one that actually allows their passion to be put out there and rewarded. Now I say that because we've started from intentional this morning in terms of what we need to do daily. We see students who are looking for really a vision that comes later. We're here on a college campus with business people that many of you, well, I won't say many of you, but some of you have already run your race. You've run it extremely well. You've had successes. You've had failures. And yet, the only thing that we all want is for a country that will allow that cycle to continue again. It's to allow that American dream to start again, where we can be intentional about things, where kids in high school see that they're going to have it better off than perhaps their parents have it. Now, I'm here to tell you that that American dream, not only is it alive and well, but it is something that we need to be intentional about. And all of you are here in different types of jobs with different types of backgrounds, and as you look at that, we have to make sure that the decisions we make not only serve in our own interest, but more importantly, in the best interest of others. And so it is with that backdrop that I want to talk a little bit about where we are on the health care. Many of you know that I've campaigned against the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, which is interesting. When you poll it as Affordable Care Act and Obamacare, it gets two different results. And many of you know that I would have campaigned against that. And yet at the same time, here we are today looking at a repeal and replacement strategy that I have not supported. And so, you know, even some of my allies say, well, why in the world would you not support something when you campaigned against it? Because it's not enough that we just repeal and replace it if it's causing harm, but we need to make sure that the very things that it's harming get addressed. And even if we are intentional about it, if it is not addressing that greater cause of making sure that what we do is provide an adequate safety net for those that need it, that we drive down insurance premiums. And I'm talking about really driving down insurance premiums. You've all seen it. In North Carolina alone, the last 3 years, the insurance premiums have increased by 30, 35%, and again, 28 to 30% this year. That is not sustainable, guys. We've got to do something different than that. And yet, at the same time, we have to understand that there are some people that need that safety net that we're there, that we've got to address. This particular bill, as I looked at it from my district standpoint, because healthcare is something that touches everybody's life here. It touches each and every one of you, and quite frankly, it's 1/5 of our economy. And so as we look at it, whether you're a doctor, a healthcare provider, or something that actually touches, the chances of healthcare affecting your business in some way, shape, or form is very high. And yet, here we are today with a plan that has been rolled out that must be better and can be better. So I've heard from hospitals who said that, you know, we need to address this. I've heard from patients who said that we need to address another aspect. But I've also heard from many of constituents who look at this and say that we need to do two things. Provide access to health care, but make sure that it is indeed affordable. And so here's my promise and pledge to you before you can ask all the tough questions. As we look at a repeal and replacement strategy, here's where we have to go. We have to get rid of the insurance regulations that drove up cost in the first place. Now, we have deductibles, and if we've got physicians, I know I see a few physicians here in the area. I see some folks that are involved in healthcare. What's happened is that we have made the insurance market very unaffordable in a number of different ways. I'm on Obamacare. People say, well, if we just had the same insurance that the federal workers have, well, federal workers do have a different plan, but members of Congress actually are on Obamacare. My premiums are a little over $1,000 a month. My deductible is $7,500 a month. So I'm basically paying out $19,500 before I get anything in return, which means that I'm, unless I get real sick, I'm self-insured. You know, the normal doctor visits and everything that I do, I'm self-insured. And if you're a physician, you get some of the same things, because what happens is now the deductibles are so high and the co-pays are going out through the roof. So unless it's subsidized, as a physician, what you're finding is they may have insurance, but there's a big no pay, and I see my friend John, who used to be with Mission. I used to remember this statistic because he gave it to me. He said, 77% were either Medicaid, Medicare, or no pay, and that was the balance. And actually, that worked out pretty good, 76 to 77%. So private insurance only covers 23% of the market. And when you look at that statistic, actually, John, you gave it to me first, but it's been reaffirmed over and over again. And when you see that, you say private insurance only covers 23% of the cost in terms of that market. You've got a whole lot of the federal role, or no pay, which actually is a federal role there that we're having to address. So for some of my libertarian friends that may be here, they say, well, just get the federal government out of it. And as long as you have Medicaid and Medicare, the federal role is going to be there. So here's my pledge to you. I do believe that we'll get to a deal. That's the number one question. I do believe that we'll get to a deal. The vote that was postponed last week was an artificial deadline. It was one that was self-imposed. Nothing this big gets rolled out in 18 days and gets voted on in the House floor. And so I'm saying rolled out. I mean, the first time that we had the opportunity to see any text of a bill was approximately today, 21 days ago. And when you start to look at that, you look at my district, this current bill, as best we could tell, would have an adverse effect on over 70% of the people I serve. And that includes hospitals, and that includes healthcare providers. There's some that are here. And many of you have called me and said, we need this and we need that. And I hope that you have believed and seen that I have been not only responsive, but taken that to heart on how we address it. And we're not there yet. I can tell you that I can see the end of the tunnel. And I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. And last week, it was a train. Hopefully, the light at the end of the tunnel this week is something that really brings us together. I'll be driving back to Washington, D.C. on Monday, and there's nothing we're spending more time on. But for us, it is a critical component that we drive down healthcare costs. And so that I'll close with the last thing. The last ask that the Freedom Caucus has asked is really as it relates to community ratings. Community ratings actually got put into place, and I'll give it as a property casualty example. It's like having Al Sneed and Buzzy there, and so Al, we're going to give you, you're 21 years old, you have a Corvette, you have 5 speeding tickets, and I won't say a DUI. We have 5 speeding tickets. You are 21 years of age and you drive a Corvette. Buzzy, you're 55 years of age. You have a Buick. You drive 12 miles a year. And the problem with community ratings in a property casualty environment is I've got to charge Al Sneed the same thing as Buzzy, and Al Sneed doesn't think, Al Sneed really likes it. Buzzy doesn't think it's fair because he doesn't drive a Corvette and he doesn't have 5 speeding tickets. That community rating has to be addressed in order for insurance to be insurance once again. That is the single focus that we have right now in terms of the request. We believe that needs to be in this bill to allow insurance to once again be insurance. And so that way Buzzy can get cheaper car insurance and we'll sock Al with a big old bill. I say that in jest. Here's the thing is we've got backdrops in this that if someone were sick We have $100 billion set up that if someone were sick, and so let's be serious about this, that if rates got so high out, that it actually would be something that would kick in from the state level to be able to make sure that you can afford those payments, subsidize it, and make sure that it's affordable. I'm optimistic. I've learned more about healthcare policy in the last 90 days. It was not on my bucket list, I promise you, prior to this, but as we get there, I want to just say thank you for allowing me to come, and now we can get to the very tough questions that I'm sure you're all wanting to ask about. So thank you. God bless you.
Congressman, thank you so much for coming. Got a comment and a question. A comment is, I can't tell you how encouraged we are, what you stand for. We had this bill almost foisted on us, which was horrible. My question is this: I'd love to have been a mouse in your pocket when you went into those meetings with Ryan or Trump, whichever. How did they address, as a business person, you said this, this, and this makes a good bill. How did they deal with that and ignore chunks of that?
Well, thank you for your comment. They're not necessarily universally shared, but in doing that, I've had even Democrats and Republicans alike saying they appreciate my stand on behalf of the people that I represent. I've found that really refreshing at a time when you look at this, when you stand up for the people that you have the honor of serving, it's very gratifying. So specifically to your question, sometimes facts get in the way of real policy. And so I can tell you what I shared originally. The original leaked plan, the very first plan that I saw actually was leaked in Politico. And so I, as a member of Congress, the very first time I saw a part of a replacement plan actually came from journalists who had leaked it, and I got to read the bill text from them. And now that's not the way that Congress should operate. And so as we looked at that, we have made sure that we have become very principled in terms of what we're requesting and making sure that it's fact-based. And the real problem is once you start dealing in facts, then it becomes, there's only two options. Either you have to deny it, you have to debate it and say that's not true, and that becomes very hard to debate on this particular one because they know the facts are accurate, that this actually lowers healthcare premiums and cost. You know, when you look at it, cost to the individual. Then the objection becomes more political. It says, well, I can't get the votes for that, or I can't get the votes for this. And so to put it in context, Obamacare has 12 insurance mandates, 12 of them. Originally in the replacement bill, it was repealing 2 of 12 insurance mandates, 2 of 12. What our group has asked for is just 2 more to be repealed, which and that is not the pre-existing condition. It's not 26-year-olds on their the plan. It's not prenatal. It's actually 2 of the 26 mandates. So we would be repealing 4 of 12 in Obamacare mandates. And so people don't, I mean, this may be the first time that you've heard that today, is so the bill that we were asked to vote on last week was repealing 3 of 12. We believe the 4 of 12 is where we need to be. And so we're going to continue to debate the facts, but when you can't debate the facts, sometimes you take incoming fire, and I've been accustomed to that over the last week or two. But thank you. Mike.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for your leadership. The question is, how does this bill, whether it passes or fails, is going to affect tax reform?
It does affect tax reform. Well, it doesn't have to affect. It's a very insightful question. Obviously, I know a government relations guy when I see him. And so here's the thing, is the reason why we've started with the Affordable Care Act is because you reduce some of the taxes. And the biggest reduction would be on the Medicaid expansion part of it, so that's where the big savings come. But you're affecting some of the taxes and you're moving the baseline down. Now that's Greek to me, it's Greek to all of you, but in essence, it makes tax reform easier when you do that. Now, it doesn't make it impossible to do the other way, but that's why we've got to get this right and why we've got to move this. I'm hopeful that we can do that in the coming weeks. I believe that we don't come home after Easter, that we stay in until we get it done, and we stay there working until we get it done. You know, I don't know of any job where people can have a tough fight and then go home and stay home for a week or two. And as you know, you work when you come home, but I think at this particular point, this is so critical. We stay in Congress, we stay there, and we get it done. We put differing opinions, you know, in the room. And my offer to the moderates is, if you give us community ratings, we'll give you something else that's important to your district. And actually, some of the things that we've offered, I can't believe that they wouldn't accept. But I think that that's where we go. So does it make it harder? Yes. Will we get this done? The answer is yes. We're going to get tax reform done. I'm optimistic that by August we will have tax reform done. And if not, we need to stay through August until we get it done. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Congressman, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. You've been in office 3 terms.
Yeah.
And appreciate your service. You've had an opportunity to work 5 years with the Republicans, a lot of them that you're still with, and
Right.
they're still with you.
Right.
And the Republicans have said for the last 7 years, we're going to repeal Obamacare.
Right.
I need to understand why a group of men and women have been up there for 7 years, a lot of you together, moderate, liberal, conservative, and all I've heard is from Republicans is we're going to repeal this.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you say, yes, let's do it. And a bill comes out in 21 days, and you've had 7 years to produce a bill. I would like for you to be honest with me and let me know why the leadership or Congress or the Republican side couldn't put a bill together. Thank you.
That frustration that you're expressing is not unique to you. As you know, I share that same frustration. If we've worked it, you know, what happened is I think there was an expectation that there would be somebody else in the White House. And so I'm always going to shoot straight with you guys. I mean, that's the only way that I know to shoot straight with you. I think there was an expectation that would be somebody in the White House. My concern beyond that, November 8th happened, that there should have been real text and we should have been ready to roll on January 20th with a bill that we had already debated and already come up, already held hearings, and already done that. Now, we also thought that from a repeal and replacement standpoint, it was critically important because we had a repeal bill. We voted on a repeal bill in 2015 that we sent to President Obama that got vetoed. And so part of us said, well, let's just send the same bill and we'll repeal it and we'll do this replacement bill. We thought it was important as members of Congress that we put forth a bill. And I'm going to give you 2 different examples of that. Susan Collins and Senator Cassidy put forth a bill. Now, I didn't support that bill, but I applauded them for at least doing what you're saying. Put the bill out there. Let's come together. Let's figure out how we and both of them know that I can't accept some of the things in there, but at least they got debate going. We, as members of the Freedom Caucus and Dr. Rand Paul, put out a replacement plan. And when we did that, we did a replacement plan as we started to look at that because we felt like it was important, if we're going to repeal it, to have a replacement plan. To have this plan rolled out 21 days ago and to not have it any better vetted, it has a 17% approval rating. And so those on the left, those on the right, they don't like it. And so when you look at that, a 17% approval rating, that rivals Congress. I mean, we're lower than that, but, and so your point is well taken. We actually should have done a lot more work. I think that's why we have to stay there to get it done, and it's vital to all of us. And I think in the end, what you will see is some components of Susan Collins and Dr. Cassidy's bill, some components of Dr. Rand Paul's bill, along with some of the components of the Speaker's bill put together that hopefully will provide meaningful care and safety net across the board. But this is a fumble that we need to pick up and run into the end zone, but we need to do it in the right way. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Mark, thank you for coming and standing the gap. But this sounds like a family that's bought an 8-year-old limit. It hadn't worked in 8 years. Everybody in the neighborhood's worked on it. It's still a limit. It's time to trade the thing in, unless you can tell me any different.
Well, the limit, yeah, do I believe that the Affordable Care Act is fixable in its place? And the answer is no, because insurance premiums, and that's not a political opinion, you can just look at insurance premiums, it's not sustainable. And so, do we need to repeal it? Here's the problem with the current plan, is if you're only repealing 3 of the 12 mandates in the current plan, you're not really repealing it. You're trying to fix it and tinker around the edges and make it work. And so it is critically important that we actually repeal it. And even if we keep subsidies, now here's the interesting thing, is this, I've got reporters here, so this will make news. Even if you kept the Obamacare subsidies as the safety net and got rid of the rest of the stuff that drove down prices, when they're linked together, the subsidies will be less as long as insurance premiums are coming down. So we've got to find a way to do that. I can tell you, there's some brilliant people in the White House. There's some brilliant people in the Senate and in the House in terms of policy people. But sometimes it's the political will to do what is difficult too, and that's really where we're at. I can tell you, I've met with 11 different senators. I probably met more on the Senate side than anything else, because ultimately it's going to be on the Senate that becomes the choke point on what gets done. And so for me, I felt like it was important as a House member to go over and actually talk to them. Talk to moderate senators, conservative senators, and in between. And it was very illuminating on what they felt like they could get done and what they couldn't. Again, it's everybody is going to judge whether you're successful or not on different matrix, but the average person will judge this on one thing: did their premiums come down? And if their premiums didn't come down, we will have failed. I told the very highest levels within the White House back in February, before there was a CIBO score, that this current bill, when I read the leaked version, I did the math. I said, in the short run, this will increase premiums 14%. This will not decrease them. And sure enough, a CIBO score came out a week or two later that said it would increase them between 15 to 20%. So I guess I was conservative in my estimate there. But when we look at this, it's got to lower premiums.
Good afternoon, my name is Sidney Bach, and after having been around for more than 75 years, it takes a heck of a lot to impress me. And I have sat here in awe and admiration looking at a congressman who has actually read the bills and read the law. To me, it's a very unique thing these days. I only would ask that you be careful of the weasel words that may be injected in the legislation, and to avoid all ambiguities, because lawyers like Albert Sneed will certainly take it down.
Thank you for your compliment. I can tell you, that's been the biggest frustration. Not only have I read the bills, I've studied them. I've read every single dot and tittle. And the debates that I'm having, it was talking about the debate. The debates I'm having many times are with talking points versus actual bill text. And it is critically important to make sure that Al Sneed doesn't get wealthy on this particular bill. Now, I see I'm about to get the hook here, so I'm getting the hook from Buzzy. So let me close with this. Sometimes things are not always as they seem. How many of you have I told the story about the Episcopal priest's wife driving down from Highlands? A few of you, so you're going to have to hear it again. So this is a true story. Episcopal priest's wife driving down from Highlands. Closest Walmart was 45 minutes away from Highlands. She was driving down the mountain, and as she drove down the mountain, she realized that she didn't have her pantyhose. She was going to talk to a ladies group, and she wanted, as a good Episcopal priest's wife, wanted to make a good impression. So she pulls off and she pulls into the Walmart in Franklin. She's pulls into the Walmart, she jumps out, she runs in, grabs the pantyhose, jumps back in the car, gets ready to take off, and realizes that there's not a place to put on the pantyhose between the Walmart and where she's going to give the speech. So she decides that she's going to go ahead and put the pantyhose on in the front of the car. Well, not without getting too graphic, you can kind of picture what was going on in the front of the car, and then all of a sudden she got this unbelievable feeling that someone was looking over her shoulder. And sure enough, she looked over her shoulder, and there is a guy looking in the window at her. She opened the door and she says, "What do you want, you pervert?" He says, "I don't know, ma'am, but you're sitting in my car." So just remember, things are not always as they seem. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman. We very much appreciate you being here and answering questions for us. With that, I think we appreciate all of y'all's participation here today, and it's good seeing you. And we would love to save some of these tickets to support CIBO and help the cause of CIBO. Thank you.